Welcome to the Unabridged podcast. I'm Ashley.
And this is Jen.
Join us for bookish episodes and check out our website, unabridgedpod.com, where you can find lots of new bookish content to grow your TBR.
Sign up for our newsletter to find out more about online book discussions and upcoming events. Find us on Patreon for extra unabridged content. Join us on Instagram and Facebook at unabridgedpod and message us there or see our website to get plugged into the Unabridged community. You want opinions about books? We've got them. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unabridged. Today is episode 279, and this is Spooky Reads 2024. We have to have the year there because this is something we do every year. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that if you are looking for ways to support the podcast and this recording endeavor, you can check us out at Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/unabridgedpod, and you can find different ways to subscribe. And new this year, we also have individual guides, discussion guides, and questions that you can purchase, even if you are not a paid member. If you're a free member of our Patreon, you can access those materials. So it's a great way to support us, even if you can't commit from month to month. And after you've supported us for a while, there is a gift package that you get, so you can check that out as well. All right, well, to start us off, we're going to do our bookish check-in. Ashley, what are you reading?
So, Jen, I was inspired by one of the things you shared recently, and that was about Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And you had talked in our reflection from the summer that you just absolutely loved her series. And I've been kind of waiting for the Inheritance Games series, but that one has a long wait on Libby. And I really enjoyed the Naturals that we read with our buddy read. And so I wanted to get back to her work. So I am currently reading Jennifer Lynn Barnes's Killer Instinct. This is the second book in the Natural series. So people who read along with us, we did the Naturals as a buddy read in, I don't know what month, but not that long ago. And this is the sequel to that. I want to just give a general overview of the series because I don't want to give any spoilers. So this focuses on Cassie Hobbs, and she is 17. And at the beginning of the Naturals, she is living with her family, but she has had a feeling for a long time. Her mother was murdered. She's had a feeling for a long time that she is kind of a burden to her extended family. They've always been very loving toward her, but she also has always felt a little out of place. She spent a lot of time trying to make sure she does exactly the right thing, that she's always helpful and respectful and all those things. And so she's had a pretty stressful upbringing. She has a lot of trauma related to her mother's murder, which she was, we kind of find out bits and pieces, but basically like she wasn't totally removed from what happened. And so she has a lot of like haunting memories from that, of course. And not only that, but also there's a lack of resolution for what happened to her mom. And so she's always had that in her mind as well. And she gets approached, and there's a whole, I think the story is just really well told, but there's a whole coffee scene that just really paints a picture of a very unusual situation that she gets approached by a guy who has a card for her to contact this other person. And the whole thing is just very cryptic and mysterious. And yet she's really intrigued. And she winds up contacting the person. And again, I don't want to give any spoilers, but basically it opens up a premise of there being a program where people like Cassie are found as teenagers and pulled into this program because they have these abilities that other people don't have. And those abilities are something that they can leverage to help solve really complex crimes. But there's a lot of gray there, right? I mean, there's a lot of morality questions. There's a lot of what does it mean for these young people to be getting involved? And so we start to learn about what the program's supposed to do and not do, why they're there, all those kinds of things. But it's very focused on serial killers. And I have to say, that is normally not my jam. So if you've listened for a long time, you would know I do not like that kind of thing. And I have to kind of work through that. Having read 2 and being in the middle of the second one now, I am doing a lot better with the print than the audio. So if you are a sensitive listener or a sensitive reader, I found, because you do get perspectives of the culprit, you do see their perspective in little glimpses in this series. And so I will say that was a lot harder for me on audio, whereas it does not bother me at all in the print. So I just want to mention that as a note. But I loved it enough, even having done the audio for The Naturals. I love the series so much, and I love the characters. I think she does such an interesting job of crafting these really rich characters who are super complex and making them interact in a way that's just really interesting. And so I think you as a reader are really there for the characters and for the hard circumstances that they find themselves in. And even though the things are hard, also like this stuff does happen, and we do need people who work to solve these crimes. And so I think it's interesting to see the backside of that, and the ethics that go into it, and like what could or couldn't happen if we had a program like this. So I just find the whole premise really captivating. And again, I don't want to say anything about Killer Instinct because I feel like there's nothing I can say without spoiling some big things from the first book. It is definitely a series you want to read in order. But again, that is Jennifer Lynn Barnes's Killer Instinct is the one I'm reading right now, but it is from the Naturals series.
Yay. I'm so excited that you're reading this. I really loved it. I think Barnes is such a creative storyteller. And I love the way she balances, really propulsive plots with a great sense of character. So yeah. The Inheritance Games has a new spinoff series as well. So maybe there wouldn't be as long a wait on that. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Do you think you need to read Inheritance Games first?
That's a good question. Maybe. Yes, maybe.
That is good to know, though. And I like her stuff. I would definitely read more of her. And I love how propulsive it is. I think that's part of why when you mentioned it, Jen, I was like, I should go back to that because I've been in a bit of a reading slump, and not terrible, but it's just hard to make time right now. And so I really enjoy something that I can't wait to get back to. I love that feeling. So, and these are like that.
Yes. Excellent.
What about you, Jen? What are you reading?
So I am reading. Okay, technically I've finished, so I'm cheating a little bit, but I am reading, for the purposes of this bookish check-in, Penny Reid's Banana Pants. And Penny Reid is one of those romance authors who is just auto-buy. I get all of her books on Kindle. She's an independent author. She has her own publishing group where she promotes other romance authors. And she has this extended world that she has developed over multiple series that all sort of connect with each other, which is really fun. And Banana Pants does connect with some of her other series. So if you're a Penny Reid fan, you'll see characters who connect with some previous series, but it's also okay if you haven't, like it would stand alone well. And this romance focuses on two characters, Ava Archer and Desmond Sullivan. So they were best friends growing up. Their parents were good friends. And then suddenly when they were 15, Des ended the relationship over the phone and told Ava that he did not want to see her anymore. Now it's a decade later, and they run into each other at a party where, and this is Banana Pants is a good title for this one, where Ava is pretending to be one of her fellow employees at their law firm, who she kind of looks like, at this very fancy secret party kind of thing. It's really weird. And Des is there undercover. You don't know for a while what he does, so I won't spoil that, but he is undercover. And so they run into each other, and he quickly extracts her from the situation. She's very upset because he ghosted her, even though they had this long history. He's delighted to see her again, but isn't in a place where he feels like he can really enter her life in a strong way. And the book basically alternates between their perspectives. So one thing that I think Reid does really well is she handles characters who are differently abled a lot. And in this case, Des is dealing with a bipolar diagnosis that he got when he was a teenager. And Ava did know that that was the case. So she was around when he received that diagnosis. That was before he ghosted her. But Reid writes a lot. So he also has ADHD. And in that note at the end of the book, Reid writes about the fact that she received an ADHD diagnosis as an adult, and that her daughter was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so she is using a lot of her daughter's experiences of the world to inform Des's outlook. And I just think there are a few things about the book that I didn't love as much. You can DM me if you want to know. But I do think that the way She handles all of that, is great. And she says in the beginning of the book that some people are skeptical of writing a rom-com with people who have, say, bipolar disorder. And she is writing because everyone deserves a love story. And so I just think she handles that really well. It's a fun book that, of course, has some very serious issues at its heart. There's a lot of conflict between Des and his father, some of it stemming from behaviors related to his bipolar disorder that are handled in a really delicate way. And so it's this great balancing act of really ridiculous comedic situations with this really serious portrayal of something that people deal with every day. So if you haven't tried Penny Reed yet, I can't recommend her enough. And this might be a fun way to start diving into her universe. So that is Penny Reed's Banana Pants.
Oh, I love that, Jen. I haven't read any of her things,
Yeah.
so
She's a lot of fun.
sounds great.
She has some that are mysteries. She has, she really dips into different romance genres, little subdivisions within romance. So
that's fun.
All right. Well, we are here to recommend some spooky reads. So for our main discussion, each of us is going to recommend something that's just perfect for October. Ashley, what are you going to recommend?
Well, and I forgot to say, but I do think that the Jennifer Lynn Barnes's Natural series is good for one if you're looking for. It's not spooky in the supernatural way necessarily, but it is definitely creepy. I mean, there are components of it that are really creepy. So I forgot to say that, but I was inspired to read it in part because Jenna just talked about how much she loved the series, but also because, it's the right time of year for it. So, but I'm going to go with Melissa Albert's The Hazelwood. I loved this. I do struggle with this episode every year because, as I already said, I'm not a big spooky readings person, and I love witchy books. And so I'm often looking for books that are fun and have the right atmosphere and all that, but sometimes they're not spooky at all. So like I definitely have those, and I've done blog posts about curated lists of those because I love those. There are romances, there are lots of different books out there that have these witchy components that I really like a lot, but sometimes they don't necessarily fit the right feeling that I think we're supposed to be going for when we pick these. So anyway, I went with this one. And this is one that does have some creepy components, but again, I am not big on like, major horror or anything. And it's not like that. So there are some parts that are pretty creepy, but I did not find it to be, I would say it's spooky, but not scary is my feeling. So this is a series. I've only read The Hazelwood. I just finished this very recently. But this one focuses on Alice. She is 17, and her life very much centers on her and her mom, Ella. And in a lot of ways, her mom is kind of her whole world. They have moved a ton. They are always kind of on the run. I mean, and on the run, like she perceives that bad luck follows them. And so like something will happen in each new location. And then all of a sudden they're packing up their stuff again and they're on the go again. And so there's a lot of that. But come her senior year, she feels that her mom is ready to settle down. Her mom has married this guy that Alice kind of can't stand, but he provides a lot of stability. She gets a stepsister from this, and she feels like she doesn't love the dynamics, but she can see that her mom feels happy and settled in a way that she hadn't before. And she also, Alice, is like glad to be thinking that maybe they're going to settle down a bit. They find out news that her grandmother, who is a reclusive author who wrote this book called, or it's like a collection of fairy tales called Tales from the Hinterland. She finds out that her grandmother has died. And her mom had grown up completely cut off from the world, living in this very sealed off estate called the Hazelwood. And once her mom left as a pretty young person with Alice, they have never gone back. And Alice remembers this time when she was quite young that this mysterious person had picked her up and taken her in the car. And he had said, "I know your grandmother. We're going to go find her. And she really wants to meet you." And her mom is able to intercede in that situation. Of course, the whole thing is terrifying for her mom, but Alice does not remember anything bad about this. She just remembers that this thing happened. And so there's a lot of mystery surrounding the Hazelwood, Alice's grandmother, and the book. So the book has these cult-like fans who are completely obsessed with the stories. And Alice comes to find out there's this guy at her school. His name is Ellery Finch. She comes to find out that he is one of those fans. So he's a super fan. He remembers a lot of the stories, but he does not have a copy of the book. Everybody's always trying to get copies of the book, but it is one that, even in the most obscure and collection-oriented bookstores, it is very hard to find these copies. And so he does not have his own copy, but at some point he had gotten his hands on, or he had read enough online, I think, to be able to get a picture of what the stories were like. And Alice, in trying to figure out some things that are going on, is wanting to know more about these stories. So all of this is unfolding, and I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to say that there is this mysterious collection of stories. Alice does not know them. Her mother acts very strange about everything related to her grandmother, the stories, the Hazelwood itself, all of it. And Ellery Finch starts kind of putting these pieces together for Alice, because he at least knows the stories. And as he's telling the stories, it's starting to paint this picture of what might have been true for her grandmother and where these stories might have come from. And one of the things he mentions early on that I think we start to see is that there's a possibility that the stories are actually just documentation of something that the grandmother has seen. So it's possible that these fairy tales are not quite as fabricated as one might think. And so that's kind of where I'd say that's the premise. That's all I want to say. Now, I will say if you go on Goodreads or anywhere and you read the publisher's synopsis, they tell you some other things I think it's better to not know going in. But I absolutely loved this. I was captivated by the story. I was captivated by Alice, who is just a fascinating character. And I think that what Melissa Albert does that's really interesting that I don't know that I've seen before is I feel like there's a lot of elements that feel kind of sci-fi to me that explore the ways that things can interact with each other, the way that worlds interact with each other, like that kind of thing. But then it's all set in this fairy tale way that's very focused on the idea of story, the power of story, and the ways that stories can shape who we are. And I think all of that is just very interesting. So again, I felt like she was just doing something different. Then I love twisted fairy tales. I've read a lot of them. And I also really like things that explore some of the sci-fi arena. But I haven't seen somebody tell a story like this, where it's kind of merging these two, what I feel are two different genres, and then showing what that might look like. So again, that is Melissa Albert's The Hazelwood. It is book 1 in the series, which is also called The Hazelwood. And I absolutely loved it. I will definitely be continuing with that series. And I think it's a perfect choice for a spooky read that is not super, super scary.
I think that is such a great recommendation. So I also have read The Hazelwood. It's been a while. So as you were talking, a lot of the details I'd forgotten were coming back. But I have not read the second book, The Night Country. So yeah, maybe I'll revisit that one this month.
Good time of year for it.
That's awesome.
What about you, Jen? What's your recommendation?
So my recommendation, I picked this one up because of Book Riot's Read Harder Challenge, which one of the items on there is a middle grade horror novel. And I have to say, I sort of feel like that's like, do those even exist? But yes, they do. They're actually, I wouldn't say there are a ton, but they're out there. And I chose one by Catherine Arden, whose other books I just love. So she wrote the Bear and the Nightingale trilogy. She writes this gorgeous fantasy. And I thought, well, I mean, a lot of times you can follow authors into other audiences. So Catherine Arden's Small Spaces is the first book in a series of 4 books, and I've only read this one. I listened to this one, and I would highly recommend the audio. And it was spooky, but I think that most middle schoolers would be fine with it. So if you're looking for like a family read along or something like this, I think this would be a great choice. Small Spaces centers on Ollie. Her real name is Olive. And you find out pretty early on that Ollie's mom has died. And so Ollie is 11 and is struggling, as her father is, to contend with moving on after her mother's very unexpected death. And so you see Ollie, she's very precocious, she's very bright, she has a great relationship with her teachers, but they're also not sure how to act around her all the time because she is acting out because of this horrible loss that she's had in ways that she didn't before her mother died. One day on the way home from school, Ollie's riding her bike and she goes down near the river that runs near her home. And there is a woman acting very erratically. She's sobbing. She has this book and she's just sort of overwrought. And Ollie approaches her, hoping that she can help, and has this very strange interaction with this woman and finds out that the woman has been told by someone that she has to throw this book in the river. Well, Ollie loves books and she doesn't understand why she has to throw the book in the river. So she basically takes the book from the woman, who is very upset, and then goes home and starts reading it. So just like the Hazelwood, there's this book within a book that you get through the story. And the book is about these two brothers who live on a farm. And over a long period of time, they end up having an interaction with someone named the Smiling Man. And they end up falling in love with the same girl. And of course, only one of them can marry her. And so these puzzle pieces come together in a way where bad things happen. I don't want to give anything away in the book or the book within the book, but so Ollie is very intrigued and she cannot stop reading this book. So she tries to stay home from school the next day so she could just read the book. Her dad is having none of it. And all right, I'm trying to think here how much more I can say without giving things away. So I'll just say things in the book and things in the book within a book start connecting. So just like in the Hazelwood, I know the parallels here are really interesting. Just as in the Hazelwood, there are things that Ollie starts wondering if maybe this is not just fiction, if maybe these things really happened. And yeah, I think I have to stop there. So I will say things continue to get spookier, things continue to start connecting. But I really, really loved, I think the horror part of it is great. But I also really loved the way we see Ollie and her dad trying to work through their grief and trying to have still a strong family while not forgetting Ollie's mom, who was a wonderful person. She was very adventurous. She was very driven. She loved to be outside. And Ollie has inherited all of that from her. And she was a really vibrant part of their family who her dad's kind of an introvert and wants to stay inside a lot. And so her mom was this great force that kind of made them go outside the house and connected them to the greater world. And so they're really trying to figure out how to make that happen. Ollie's trying to figure out all of the things that she did at school. Like she was part of the chess club because her mom was great at chess. And she was on the Scholastic Bowl team. And she has just ended all of that. She has just really cut herself off. And her teachers keep trying to invite her back into these things that connected her to the school as a whole. And that's just really hard for her. In a subplot, there is a girl in her class who is being bullied, and Ollie stands up for her. And then there's a boy who was connected with this bullying incident, and they become a more important part of Ollie's life as well. So there's also this group of students who become kind of a support system for her. So yeah, there's a lot of richness there. There's a lot of depth. It did make me definitely want to continue reading because I think the writing that made me love Arden is here. There's this great world building. There's this imagination with the book within the book. And again, it is spooky. I like what you said, Ashley, that it's spooky, not scary. And I think that's true here as well. So if you have a really sensitive reader a middle grader, they may be creeped out by it. So I don't know that this is for the most sensitive of readers, but I do think that most middle school age students would be fine with this. Elementary might be a little young. It just depends on how they react to spooky stuff. But I think I could have read it with my kids when they were in middle school. And again, I highly recommend the audio. I feel like it's like the ghost story kind of thing where it's really fun to listen to. So that is Catherine Arden's Small Spaces, and I will definitely be reading the rest of this series.
Wow, that does sound really interesting, Jen. And I have not read any of her books, so I'd be very interested to try her out.
I started with The Bear and the Nightingale, and it is gorgeous. So that's a trilogy. They're inspired by Russian folk tales and in this fantasy realm. So yeah, they're beautiful. All right. Well, we are going to close out today's episode with the Lit Chat game. And I'm going to open the box here and pull a card.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right. Do you ever judge a book by its cover? It's okay. We all do it. Name a book you read that lived up to its cover. What about the cover made you pick it out?
Whew. That's a hard one. Okay. So I definitely am influenced by covers, and I mean, pretty strongly. However, for one thing, I read mostly digitally these days. So that has softened that a lot. And secondly, I am almost always reading something I've heard about before, often from Jen, who is my book recommendation expert. And so thank you for that, Jen. But yeah, in general, I mean, for sure I'm influenced by covers. Instagram and the Bookstagram world has continued to influence that. And certainly when a lot of us who got on Instagram, when it was like largely still images, you know, part of what really worked was that it captivated this idea that like the cover is beautiful and you can create these really interesting curated images that highlight that. But I'm just going to go with, I looked on my shelf very quickly while we were trying to decide here, and I'm going to go with Emily X.R. Pan's The Astonishing Color of After. And I think it is a good example. I don't remember if the cover influenced me because we did do that one as a book club, and that's been a long time. But friends, if you have not read that book, if you have not listened to that discussion, I mean, very impactful book. Fantastic. That book has stayed with me. I still think it is one of my most favorites that we've read on the podcast. But anyway, I mean, this is a good example of where the colors are really striking. The image is really striking. So there's like a large bird in the background and it's kind of dripping. So there is this element of there's the bird, but then there's something a little it's like dripping, like there's something supernatural or fantastical in some way about that image. And then I think that the letters are incorporated in a really interesting way. And then I really am drawn to the colors. So that's just a good example of where, yes, the book lived up to the cover, but also I definitely would have been gravitated. Like, again, I don't remember because I read that one a while ago. So I don't remember how much I was influenced by the cover as far as actually reading it. But I think it's a good example of where, for sure, I love the cover. I think it really speaks to kind of the magical, mystical nature of the book. And I did think it held up. So there you go. What about you, Jen?
Yeah, I think I'm very similar. I'm definitely drawn to covers, and I try not to be turned off by covers I don't like. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think we read and research and talk about books so much that it's seldom that I don't know something else about the book. So like you, I'm just going to talk about one that I found to be really compelling that also will be great for this month. And that is the collection Out There Screaming, an anthology of new Black horror, which is edited by Jordan Peele. And that cover, it has like this textured look to it. And then there are parts that are torn out that as you look at it, you realize that it's two eyes and a mouth. And the title is clustered in the mouth opening. So it's really creepy and kind of haunting. And I think the red with the sort of grayed out contrast is really striking. And I will say that collection included some of my favorite authors, like N.K. Jemisin has a story in it, Nalo Hopkinson, Nnedi Okorafor, Tochi Yobuchi. Oh, Rebecca Rowan Horse is in there. So it has some great, I like short story anthologies because a lot of times you can try out authors, and then if you like them, you can pursue their longer works. So yeah, but that one definitely drew me in. So yeah, I think, and I will also say, if you're interested in diving deeper into covers, Kelly Jensen on Book Riot does a great job. She'll often look at hardcover versus paperback covers and analyze the differences and why she prefers one over the other. And she talks a lot about marketing. And yeah, so if you're into cover design, she does a great job covering that for Book Riot. So yeah.
That's really cool. That one, it's interesting because we both chose ones that the words are incorporated in interesting ways into the image. But yeah, I haven't read that anthology, Jen. It looks great.
It was really good. Yeah, I do think I'm generally more drawn to graphic covers, like with that kind of graphic design element. I like those a lot. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening. We would love to know what spooky reads you would recommend for this month, or if there are book covers that you particularly enjoy. And don't forget to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/unabridgedpod. Thanks so much for listening. Do you have comments or opinions about what you heard today? We'd love to hear them. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at unabridgedpod, or on the web at unabridgedpod.com for ways to support us. To get more involved, you can sign up for our newsletter, join a buddy read, or become an ambassador. Thanks for listening to Unabridged.